There is a kind of violence that leaves no marks, yet it scars the soul for life. Not all wounds bleed. Some hide behind polite smiles, good grades, and perfectly rehearsed answers to the question, "How are you?" This is the silent pain born inside homes where love is conditional, where warmth turns to cold without warning, and where a parent's affection becomes both comfort and threat. It is the kind of pain that never shows up in hospital charts, yet shapes every heartbeat, every relationship, every fear. The truth is, childhood is not only built on food, safety, or shelter, it is built on bond. The bond between a parent and a child is the blueprint of the human soul. It teaches the child what love means, how much they're worth, and whether the world is a safe place or a battlefield. But when that bond is unstable, when it's laced with manipulation, neglect, or emotional absence, something invisible begins to rot within. The child learns to survive instead of to live. They grow into adults who confuse anxiety for love, silence for safety, and pain for connection. This is the invisible violence of toxic parenting. It's not the yelling or the bruises, it's the inconsistency, the emotional whiplash, the sense of never being enough. One day, affection. The next, rejection. One moment, pride. The next, shame. The mind of a child cannot make sense of this, so it makes one devastating assumption: it must be my fault. And that belief becomes the seed of a lifelong struggle, the quiet programming that dictates how you love, how you trust, and how you see yourself. In this video, we'll uncover how this invisible programming is written into your nervous system. We'll explore how the wounds of childhood continue to echo through adult life, shaping your emotions, your relationships, and your very sense of identity. And most importantly, we'll learn how to break the cycle, how to rebuild the connection that was broken, and finally experience what love was always meant to feel like: safe, steady, and free. Because the deepest scars aren't found on the body, they're etched into the heart, and the time has come to finally understand them. The psychological programming of childhood. John Bowlby, a British psychiatrist and the father of attachment theory, discovered something that changed the way we understand human emotion forever. He realized that the bond between a child and their caregiver is not just emotional, it's biological. The way a parent responds to a child's needs literally wires the child's brain, shaping how they see love, safety, and themselves. When a caregiver is consistent, responsive, and emotionally present, the child's nervous system learns that the world is safe. Trust is born. The child grows up believing they are worthy of care. But when that bond is unstable, when love is given one moment and taken away the next, the developing brain is thrown into chaos. The child learns that affection is something that must be earned. They start to associate love with performance, obedience, or silence. They begin to believe that mistakes come with punishment, that emotions are dangerous, and that vulnerability is weakness. Slowly, the most dangerous message takes root: I am not lovable as I am. This is where the programming begins. Each inconsistency from the parent, each broken promise, cold stare, or emotional withdrawal teaches the child that love is unpredictable. Their nervous system adapts, staying alert, scanning constantly for danger. Every tone of voice, every facial expression becomes a signal to decode. They start walking on eggshells, trying to prevent the next emotional storm. What should have been a relationship of trust becomes a training ground for anxiety. Bowlby called this pattern anxious ambivalent attachment. It's a state of emotional confusion where love and fear become intertwined. These children crave closeness but never feel secure in it. When affection comes, it's mixed with tension. When distance appears, it feels like abandonment. The body reacts as if survival depends on maintaining connection, even when that connection causes pain. Over time, this constant uncertainty hardwires the nervous system for anxiety, and the child grows into an adult who confuses intensity with love and peace with boredom. The tragedy is that this programming doesn't fade with time. It becomes the silent background music of life, The rhythm of the heartbeat that speeds up when someone gets too close. The quiet panic when love feels too stable, too calm, too safe. It's not weakness. It's conditioning. The body learned long ago that safety is temporary and affection is dangerous. And until that code is rewritten, every relationship becomes a reflection of the first one, the one that taught them to fear what they needed most. The question isn't whether this programming exists. The question is how deeply it runs, and what it takes to break it. The subtle faces of toxic parenting. Not every toxic parent screams. Some of them whisper, others stay silent. Their words may sound calm, even caring, but their tone carries a quiet poison that sinks deep. They don't need to break things or shout to cause damage, because emotional control doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it wears a smile. There's the parent who controls every choice, always insisting it's for your own good. The one who hides domination behind concern. They decide who you talk to, what you study, who you date, all while convincing you that it's love. But love that suffocates is not protection, it's possession. Then there's the quiet one, the emotionally absent parent who's physically there but mentally elsewhere. They don't yell, they don't hit, but their silence speaks louder than any words. You learn early that your feelings don't matter, that your pain isn't worth attention. And perhaps the most confusing of all, the parent who gives love one day and cold rejection the next. The one who hugs you after a bad day, but the next morning looks at you like you're a stranger. Their affection is unpredictable, their moods impossible to read. You never know which version of them you'll get, and so you adapt. You start studying them, memorizing the smallest details, the tone of their voice, the look in their eyes, the rhythm of their footsteps down the hall. You learn to read micro-expressions, like survival codes, trying to predict danger before it arrives. This constant uncertainty rewires the mind. It breeds anxiety, not as a feeling, but as a lifestyle. The body stays in alert mode, always ready to protect, always scanning for the next emotional hit. Love becomes a guessing game. Comfort becomes tension, and peace feels suspicious. You start believing that love is something unstable, something you must chase, manage, or earn. And when you grow up, that belief doesn't just vanish, it becomes your blueprint for every relationship you touch. This is how love turns into fear. The heart learns to associate warmth with threat, closeness with danger, affection with pain. And the cruel part? It feels normal because chaos was home. The internal working model. The invisible map. The human mind is not born with a manual. It's written over time, word by word, through every experience, every look, every reaction from the people who raised us. Bowlby called this the internal working model, the invisible map that tells us who we are, how love works, and what to expect from the world. It's not something we consciously build. It forms in the background, quietly, as our brains develop. Imagine the mind as a blank page. Every moment with a parent, every kind word, every silence, every outburst writes something on that page. Over the years, those words become a permanent script. If the writing is full of care and consistency, the story is simple. I am safe. I am loved. I matter. But if the writing is scattered with neglect, manipulation, or emotional unpredictability, the story turns darker. I must earn love. I must not make mistakes. I must never show weakness. That script doesn't fade with time. It becomes the lens through which you see everything. It shapes how you respond, how you connect, how you protect yourself. It's why someone's delayed text can trigger panic. It's why a friend's cold tone can feel like rejection. It's why silence feels heavy, not peaceful. Because somewhere deep inside, the nervous system remembers what silence used to mean: the quiet before emotional punishment, the calm before rejection. This invisible model drives adult relationships without us even realizing it. It creates patterns that look like overthinking, but are really survival instincts left on autopilot. You start doubting your worth the moment someone pulls away. You overanalyze every pause in conversation. You replay situations over and over, searching for what you did wrong. You don't trust consistency, because consistency was never safe. And so, what began as protection in childhood turns into sabotage in adulthood. The same hyper-awareness that once kept you emotionally alive now keeps you from feeling truly connected. You mistake stillness for danger, calm for distance, love for chaos. The very programming that once helped you survive now stops you from living. And until that script is rewritten, you'll keep playing the same story, different faces, same pain. The adult prison, repeating the pattern. Most adults believe they've moved on from childhood. They build careers, families, and lives that look solid on the surface. But beneath all the accomplishments, the old emotional mold still shapes everything. The programming doesn't disappear just because you outgrow the house where it started. It hides inside your reactions, your relationships, your silence. You see it in the constant guilt that follows you everywhere. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You say sorry just for taking up space. You silence your needs because somewhere deep inside, you still believe that asking for too much will make people leave. You give more than you have, thinking that overextending yourself is the price of being loved. And when people take advantage of that kindness, you blame yourself for letting it happen again. This is the quiet inheritance of toxic parenting, toxic loyalty. The belief that love means staying loyal no matter how much it costs you, that boundaries are betrayal, that self-respect is selfish. So you keep giving, even when you're empty. You keep forgiving, even when it breaks you. You mistake endurance for love and guilt for gratitude. The same conditioning that once made you hyper-vigilant as a child now rules your adult life. At work, you avoid conflict and overperform to prove your worth. In relationships, you chase affection from people who mirror your past unavailable, unpredictable, unsafe. And within yourself, you keep fighting battles that began decades ago, mistaking peace for weakness and chaos for passion. It's a cycle that runs deep, but cycles can be broken, because what was learned can be unlearned. And that's where the real work begins, learning how to rewrite the story that was written for you, and building a kind of love that doesn't demand your silence to survive. The healing path. Earned secure attachment. Healing doesn't begin with forgetting the past. It begins with understanding it. What happened to you wasn't your fault, but healing from it is your responsibility. The patterns you learned were survival mechanisms, not destiny. They can be rewritten. This is where the concept of earned secure attachment comes in the process of rebuilding trust, safety, and emotional balance through awareness and new, consistent experiences. Trauma is not a life sentence. It's programming, and programming can change. The nervous system, the mind, the heart, they can all learn new rhythms. It's not about erasing what was done, but teaching your body and mind that safety can exist again, that love doesn't have to hurt, that peace isn't the same as danger. The first stage is awareness. You begin by noticing, not judging, not fixing, just observing. The way your chest tightens when someone pulls away, the anxiety that rises when things feel too calm, the guilt that surfaces when you say no. You start to recognize these moments for what they are: echoes of old conditioning. This awareness is the first step toward freedom, because you can't change what you refuse to see. Then comes reconditioning. This is where you teach your system that calm is not the enemy. You start breathing through discomfort instead of running from it. You let yourself rest without feeling lazy. You allow stability without assuming it's temporary. You practice presence through mindfulness, therapy, journaling, or simply slowing down enough to feel what's real. Over time, the body learns that safety can be familiar again. Finally, there's reconnection. This is the stage where real healing takes root. It's when you let people in slowly, intentionally, and allow them to meet you where you are. Healthy relationships become medicine. Consistent empathy, gentle honesty, and emotional steadiness rewire what pain once taught you. And in that process, you become something extraordinary, the parent you never had for yourself. You start giving yourself the love you were always chasing. You learn to set boundaries without guilt, to rest without shame, to express emotion without fear. The same heart that once only knew survival begins to understand safety. And the same mind that once saw love as danger starts to recognize it as home. Healing doesn't erase the past, it redeems it. It turns pain into wisdom and fear into strength. And slowly, the light returns. The heartbeat steadies. The story begins to change. Breaking the cycle. Breaking the cycle isn't clean. It's not easy, and it's rarely understood by the people who forced you to start it. When you begin setting boundaries, it can feel like betrayal, like you're turning your back on family, on loyalty, on everything you were taught to protect. But the truth is, you're not betraying anyone. You're breaking a pattern that was never meant to continue. You are not abandoning your parents, you are abandoning your pain. You're walking away from manipulation, from silence, from the invisible contracts that told you love means self-sacrifice. For the first time, you're choosing honesty over guilt, peace over chaos, self-respect over approval. That isn't cruelty, that's survival. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors. They don't lock people out. They keep your sanity in. Every time you say no to what once broke you, you're saying yes to a future built on truth. It takes strength to unlearn what was wired into your nervous system, to look back at your upbringing and say, that ends with me. Because that's what real courage looks like, ending what hurt you without becoming what hurt you. When you stop repeating their story, you begin to write your own. You start living from choice, not fear. You build relationships that don't drain you. You create peace that doesn't depend on anyone's permission. You start to understand that healing isn't about revenge or even forgiveness. It's about freedom. Healing is not rebellion. It's evolution. It's becoming everything they couldn't be, not out of spite, but out of truth. Because once you face the storm that raised you, nothing outside of you holds the same power anymore. The wound was not your fault, but the healing, that's your responsibility. No one can walk that path for you. No apology, no explanation, no closure from the past will ever replace the work of choosing peace every single day. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove anything. It's quiet, steady, and deeply personal. It happens in the small choices, the moments you breathe before reacting, the times you walk away instead of chasing chaos, the days you choose rest over guilt. There comes a point when you stop waiting for someone to make things right and start realizing that you are the one who will. You build the peace you never had. You become the stability you once begged for. And you start to understand that strength doesn't come from holding everything together. It comes from learning when to let go. So let it all fade, the noise, the guilt, the old voices that said you weren't enough. What remains is truth. What remains is you grounded, calm, and free. Because peace is not found, it's built. If this message speaks to you, don't stop here. Keep going, dive deeper, learn more, subscribe, and keep doing the work. Because the cycle doesn't break with one choice. It breaks with every choice you make after the story is still being written. And this time, it's yours.